based in downtown Palo Alto.
We were in Palo Alto back in those days, which is like a restaurant town. My goal was that we would go to a different restaurant every night. We'd eat out dinner all the time. We'd eat out lunch all the time, in fact.
The company was expanding quickly, and soon they moved again. But with few restaurants around this new location, Larry and Sergey decided that it would be more efficient and more cost-effective if they had their own kitchen with their own chef. The one who was chosen had on his resume a stint cooking for the band, the Grateful Dead.
They offered me shares in the very beginning, and I was very reluctant. I talked to my dad about it, and I was like, Pop, these guys want me to give them money for these shares in a company that isn't public. And he's like, it's a scam. Don't believe him. Don't you give him a dime.
Unlike other search sites, the Google homepage was clean and efficient, free of annoying banner ads and pop-ups. Larry Page and Sergey Brin watched as their search engine Google became more and more popular. But that engine still wasn't translating into real money, and they had no viable business plan to make Google turn a profit.
Our founders decided that for the longest time that we weren't going to get into the ad business. However, I think the breakthrough idea came when we said, look, why don't we just show ads that are purely text-based and doesn't have any, moving images or distracting stuff.
Based on the search, Google would provide simple ads for people to click through. So in October 2000, Google embarked on a new business, online advertising. Almost immediately, ad money started to flood in, and pressure grew on Larry and Sergey from their venture capitalist investors. They wanted an experienced CEO to run the place. Larry and Sergey chose a seasoned veteran of the tech world, Eric Schmidt. He had successfully run software maker Novell, and before that, he was with Sun Microsystems. But perhaps what was more important for the founders was that he shared with them a background as a computer science engineer, married to a strong entrepreneurial drive.
Well, Google has taken the position that creativity occurs from individual entrepreneurs deep inside the company, often who have an idea but don't have time to work on it. So we invented a concept called 20% time. And every technical person in the company is supposed to, and we encourage them to spend 20% of their professional time on things that they find interesting, not things that we find interesting.
Employee number 23, Paul Buckheit, who was the originator of the motto, "Don't be evil," was also the engineer who in just one day came up with Gmail, an email program used internally by Googlers.
There were a lot of objections to even doing Gmail in the first place, but one of the big ones was that there was no way to make money with email. So there was this idea that had been floating around that maybe we could do targeted advertising. For example, if you get an email about a ski trip, you'll get maybe an advertisement for ski equipment or gloves or something like that.
He decided to try writing some code to see if it was possible for Google computers to scan the Gmail messages and spit out an appropriate ad.
When I arrived the next day, people were pretty excited about it, and not always in a positive way. Some people thought that it was actually a terrible idea.
What I recall from the meetings, which occurred over about a year, was this constant debate of what kinds of features would advertising work and so forth. And we ultimately decided to try it. And we, in fact, launched Gmail on April 1st. It was seen largely as a joke.
The addition of targeted ads to Gmail in 2004 proved to be no joke, adding to Google's ever-burgeoning bottom line. Google had transformed itself into an advertising money-making machine.
Now, when we talk about publicity, the Google IPO has received more publicity than any other IPO in history.
When Google was preparing for its initial public offering of stock, it had to disclose a closely guarded secret, that it had staggeringly large revenues and profits. It took most investment observers by surprise and made Google a very attractive stock to own. And so August 19th, 2004, the first day of trading of Google shares, saw the creation of hundreds of freshly minted millionaires. Those early investors and first Google employees had struck the motherlode.
For people who get into a company because of the money, an IPO is a big deal. Any exit strategy, you're bought by someone else, you have a public offering, whatever, it's a big deal. and it causes you to rethink your life because your dream has been achieved.
I'm doing okay. I'm comfortable. Most people would consider me wealthy. I consider myself wealthy.
Larry and Sergey were now way beyond wealthy. It took just 6 years for them to become billionaires. Their company, Google, had become one of the world's top search engines. It's even made it into dictionaries as a verb. Google as a technological tool has become part of pop culture. And young people's perception of Google as a cross between a college dorm and geek heaven means that Google receives more than 1 million job applications a year.
You come to Google, and first time I'm really feeling like everyone knows what they're doing and they know it better than me.
So just what does it take to be one of the chosen few selected to be a Googler? The Googleplex, as it is known by the Googlers who inhabit it, are made to feel that they are the best and brightest, deserving of the complimentary meals, the subsidized masseuse service, the free laundry, as well as the barbershop on wheels.
I feel one of the greatest thing about Larry and Sergey, they were really, really smart people and they were brilliant, but I think one of the best things that they've done is they also made sure that they surrounded themselves with the best and most brilliant people that they could find.
Google receives more than 1 million job applications a year. However, to join the ranks of some 20,000 worldwide Googlers requires passage through a grueling series of tests and interviews. Rajin Seth, another Stanford computer science graduate, had worked at a number of high-tech companies before approaching Google.
I probably went through somewhere between 10 to 15 interviews at the time. And then finally, my last interview was with Larry. And so, literally I just came in one day and actually got to sit down in Larry Page's office and interview with him. And he asked me a bunch of tough questions, and I didn't quite know how I did, but apparently he liked me enough to the point where they decided to give me an offer.
Among the most highly prized employees at Google, just after computer science engineers, are new hires called APMs, or Associate Product Managers.
A large part of why Google hired associates like my position, associate product managers, out of school at that point, was to be able to culture these future product managers like myself in the way Google wanted them to behave.
Mostly young, recent graduates with incredibly high test scores, they are given enormous amounts of responsibility and authority early in their career.
And we're not prioritizing that very hard right now because we don't think it's going to be able to replace the personal start page from day one.
Among the most recent crop of APMs is a Canadian, Jeff Harris.
The job that I'm actually doing, which is an associate product manager, is kind of designed for people that have a technical background but aren't necessarily interested in coding day to day. So what my job ends up being is communicating with the engineers who do code all the time and kind of just making sure that all the engineers are working together towards the same goal. So I'm just turned 22.
I think the biggest surprise at working at Google is probably how open it is about everything that we're doing. So I can just look it up on our internal site and see details on every single project that's out there, which is great from an organizational perspective.
Although Google might be highly transparent internally, it, like so many of the other big Silicon Valley high-tech companies, is extremely sensitive about what outsiders are allowed to report on, whether that be code on monitor screens or the doodles on the whiteboards, which are seemingly everywhere.
We believe in having whiteboards all over the place, and the reason for that is to really spur creativity, so that you can draw things and communicate ideas and work with other people on that idea.
The secure data connector here, right?
Is our ability to publish programmatically going to be released at the same time, or is that?
Yeah. And so a lot of times people will pull out their phone and take a picture of the whiteboard and send that around as an email. Those end up being part of the notes for the meeting.
Besides having whiteboards and food stands everywhere, the other striking feature about Google offices is the absence of paper.
We operate very much in a paperless manner. One of the things that we've done here at Google is that users have laptops that they carry with them to the meetings that they're in. A lot of the note-taking is done electronically so that it can be instantly shared with people.
An insatiable appetite for the new and innovative, spanning a wide spectrum of technologies, means Google is constantly on the prowl.
But not everything, of course, is invented at Google. We also have teams looking for great technology in small companies that we can pick up, that we can buy, where they would benefit from the structure of Google.
With plenty of cash and stock at its disposal, Google is able to scoop up companies it's interested in. That's how YouTube became a Google product, as did Google Earth and Picasa, as well as a web-based word processing program called Writely.
Writely was a word processor in the browser. You just go to it as a normal website and it just works. Google noticed it because we were getting a little bit of press.
Google bought Writely and hired its founders to help develop it further.
My experience has been a little bit like I was a kid